Greetings, my name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, licensed presenters, the core new core, my patrons, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor or student. Just three things on my list today: the bridge, the offer, and why front splits last. So the bridge, the offer, and why front splits last. And see, in the ongoing pointing to the use of a carousel that goes by, you're standing outside the carousel and you're watching as it turns around. Some things come into view and they go by and then they disappear. Right? And when reaching for understanding and comprehension, when learning, right? Southern California studies about spaced repetition, and you learn from being exposed to something, like watching the carousel go by, and then putting it down, and having there be time go by before you're exposed to it again. And that spaced repetition, like learning something, anything, the exposures, depending on, it's in a range of like 5 to 8 times before you become familiar enough with something to have any comprehension of it, or to have learned it, to be able to regurgitate it. So in the beginning of this broadcast, I told you I had 3 things. I named the 3 things and they went by, and then right away almost, I went through them again. Right? And my point is to recognize that through understanding how one learns through spaced repetition, and that it's through the spaced repetition that one becomes familiar to the point of one taking control of it for themselves, to the point of even anticipating what it is they're seeking to control. You get familiar enough with what goes by on the carousel that based on what you see, without having seen it yet, you have the ability to anticipate what's coming. And that's part of the way surviving works out, is in the anticipation of what is to come. And why am I talking about that? Because Pilates is doing this pattern, doing this mat work, and it's in preparation for whatever is to come. That's the point. Number 1, the bridge. The bridge, the offer, and why front splits last. See, there it goes by again. But it helps keep in context the things that are going by. And now I'm talking about the first thing, which is the bridge. And I refer to the bridge over the River Kwai, which is a World War II movie. And the head of the commando force on the way in to enemy territory to blow up the bridge always had this state of mind of preparedness, that there's always one more thing to do. There's always one more thing to do. Okay? So in terms of my preparedness and helping you follow my example, I've been inspired to and gotten to stay consistent with 3.5 years worth of broadcasting here live with you. In the hope, a thin hope maybe, but that what is recorded on here on YouTube and later on Facebook, because I do YouTube first and then Facebook, that those recordings might have some thin chance of surviving. Easier in YouTube than in Facebook, I think, so another good reason to have content on 2 different platforms to spread to improve the likelihood that you get to recover or maintain one or the other, if not both. Those 3 years have been holding light to knowledge about the biomechanics of core new tension and about a point of view of Pilates that is based on a theory, not based on folklore. Most of Pilates is all based on the lineages of people that knew Joe and what they have taught since. Folklore is word of mouth, which is fine, and it's fascinating. It's part of the culture of who you end up being part of to the extent that you involve yourself in the Pilates culture. But more than just that culture is an underlying essence to what it is, according to a theory, which is an explanation. So there's folklore and there's theory. Both are part of what's going on, but to the extent that you want to do or survive, especially survive as a Pilates instructor, you can just keep all the theory that you know to yourself, as many do, and participate in the culture. Somewhere over the course of those 3.5 years, the focus has been on being able to present 3 pieces of information about Joe from Joe's book and 2 pieces of information from me, Michael Miller. And these are these 2 mountains of knowledge. Sounds so pretentious, but I want you to see them like as such because they're definable and sensational, which is the great kicker about whatever intellectuality I'm throwing out to you in my words and the thinking that might arouse. It points to a sensation, both in that you can feel core new tension if you engage in it in your body. The more you're able to, and the more you listen. I'm saying that core new tension is the way the body interacts with itself, whether it knows it or not, which most of it seems humanity is unaware of still. I know it's just one point of view about biomechanics and one point of view about Pilates. Now, core new tension is about how the body engages itself to move through space. And that's just a fact of the way the body accomplishes the physics that it's surviving in. The physics that it's running through to survive. And our biggest challenge to that is gravity. Gravity. Because why? because we're a water balloon in air. We're a fish that's trying to swim in an ocean of air, meaning we're made of water, and the medium that we're moving through makes us heavy. And so to the extent that we can mitigate the stress that our heaviness causes, we're more likely to survive running through the jungle trying to escape the jaws of death, which just being a human and talking about Pilates is about dealing with gravity. It's about number 2. Contrology develops the body uniformly. I get all off into being my presenter self. And when it comes to the bridge and to the commander that's always thinking there's one more thing to do, there's on Udemy, udemy.com, search for the course How to Survive as a Pilates Instructor, and for like $10 you get the course, which is barely marginal at best. But there's a file to download, which is a PowerPoint presentation of these 5 things. So in terms of preparation to trying to help you make money, explaining to people CT and MMP, my notes say, I'm trying to set an example. And then in parens, it says, it hasn't gotten me anywhere. But maybe, and maybe perhaps over time, see, especially timing and the unfolding of events. The reason you do Pilates is to prepare for whatever comes up. And in the midst of uncertain times, as I think we always are in, just because surviving is always uncertain, my 3.5 years of broadcasting has really come down to my audience being anybody that wants to entertain the idea of making money explaining CT and MMP to somebody else. And I use those letters on purpose. And I encourage you to as well. Because now they don't know something, and if they want to know more, the next level of knowledge, of explanation, is that CT is about biomechanics, and MMP is a point of view of Pilates. If nobody's interested in either of those things, you don't have any interest in pursuing the offer to make your presentation further. Because you don't have to, you don't need to, but it's the way, I think, to establish, when you make an offer, you turn it into money. And that may be seen as a vulgar and shallow thing. But to me, it also pays homage to Pilates is about surviving, and part of surviving is in the realm of pentacles, which is a fancy word for money or coins. Okay? And being able to, navigate and offer. So where am I here? Yeah. A student of mine offered me a penny for my thoughts and then asked me an intriguing question. So I took him up on the offer and gave him an answer, and I was so pleased when he wrote back and he said he would send it to me, the penny, and more explanation on where the question was coming from. This not only leads to the offer, but the way to make the offer that worked for me selling. Oh, I'm so proud. I'm so proud, and maybe I shouldn't be, but the person that was supposed to receive one of these, see that's sort of heavy. It's like 3.75 pounds heavy. It's a copy of my Reformer picture book. Arrived, and the person that paid for it said they were pleased. Well, they said they loved it. Okay. What I'm pointing to is a lack of control of the weight involved. What I'm pointing to is what made that easy from my customer's point of view was just I had their email, I sent them a request for money, and through their email they were able to respond and accomplish the exchange of value. I tutored that. I had my computer had then order up a printout the way they wanted it of the book, the picture book, and went down. It was prepaid from my computer at home, and went down, picked it up, inspected it, then walked to the next counter and shipped it. I'm sharing this with you because I'm proud that someone wanted my picture book, but I'm also showing it as an example of how to add 2 and 2. Whatever it is you're doing, I think in a way, if you want to exchange value with someone, what worked really easily for me on my last effort to do that was by sending an invoice, sending a request for payment. I got to figure out how PayPal terminology is that. Right? So, I not only recommend that you get a PayPal account name, but then also, so that's the address that they come to send you money, but that in a way is also asking them to lean beyond or go beyond just opening their email. Right? So, to be facilitating, I share that anecdote with you. Okay. Number 3, why front splits last. Well, when you start asking why, if you can answer why for this reason, it's probably the best reason of all. And if you answer why for any other reason, it is some other reason. And this reason is because Joe did it. Joe documented it that way. Meaning Joe's pictures, Joe's words, and Joe's film. Original work of Joe, not what anyone else has made of it or explained it past. Joe's original work is like the data, and then everybody can make what they want of the data. Is the distinction that I'm making in what is Joe's original work and what isn't. Joe's pictures, Joe's words, and Joe's film. big avenues of discussion about other subjects comes up. But the penny for your thoughts, I'm bringing to light or focusing on being sensitive to someone asking you a question and being willing to put a price on it, and putting the price on it under a presumption that the information is only worth what they're offering, or actually be free because of what they're offering. Now, it's a friendly thing, a penny for your thoughts. But see, if you're going to survive and from the point of view of MMP and knowing how to offer an explanation, I just lost bandwidth, and I'm frozen in space. So the question is always, will your buffer catch up with what you lost connection in to transmit? See, there, came back. I don't understand if that's buffered or not. So be ready to be polite, but also be ready to make an offer that extends the limit of what's polite versus what you consider worth being paid for. The person I never heard from that I offered $10 for 3 comments, right? For $10, I would have given my best in 3 comments to make it something worthwhile and what they were asking me, and had a whole open relationship beyond that. When I end a reformer workout, the intermediate, and it's consistent within the different levels really. If you're doing splits at all, you introduce front splits first and then learn side splits, because front splits are closer to center and in the plane of midline on a plumb line that divides the body in two. It's this plane of movement. And then in controlling this plane of movement, one then expands beyond that to side bending, and therefore you would learn side splits after you could control front splits. And yet in ending the sequence, once you know both, you do side splits first and end in front splits, because you are coming to a landing, you're coming to the focus of being in your highest degree of control in the plane that matters most, this one. Because it's through this plane that you move directly, and therefore hope to exhibit enough control to find food and procreate. So you do side splits last because that's the plane you come to rest in, or you not rest really, but that matters to you most. It's like you move from flexion and extension to side bending to rotation and torsion. as you draw to a conclusion, you come to conclusion through the pattern that you evolved out of. So from side bending to flexion extension, from the lateral plane to the midline on a plumb line. Alan Menendez. Alright, so that's why. So the bridge is, what one more thing might I do to help you find your sense of self in being confident enough to offer a presentation that explains CT and MMP. See? And that's your offer. For, well, not quite, 3 more important points. For this much money, for this much time or amount of something, okay, paid in advance. Get paid in advance. And then set a clock on the amount of time, and then do your best to share what you can in a presentation that explains or tries to CT and MMP. You obviously won't get it all in 20 minutes. But you can take enough passes on the carousel if you do it well as an instructor, as a presenter. You present it in layers of simplicity that connect to what they already know. And then you just expand from what they already know into where you want them to come, as though you're illuminating a way to move, or moving. Coming to a landing, ending with what is primary. Alright, so that's, so if you don't or can't, you know, you have to have, you have to be over 18 or whatever, but have an ability, assuming you're an adult and you can, open a PayPal account so that you can send a request for payment. Make it easy. That's one more way to make it easy. Not just be able to say, type this in a browser and go from there, which is totally simple. PayPal.me/michaelmillerpilates. But there's getting to that, having an account name. That's a hurdle. Seems. The more you build the bridge of the bridge of what? The bridge of interaction, the bridge of value, the bridge for getting paid for what you feel like getting paid for. That goes a long way toward your own autonomy in surviving. And so that's like the bridge, see the offer. And the bridge is making an offer that allows someone to send you what you think it's worth to give back for whatever you have. Know how to send an invoice. That's building a bridge. That's one of the things. So it's like, get the Udemy course on how to survive as a Pilates instructor, to get the PowerPoint presentation you can put on your phone or tablet or your laptop, and you can send it to a giant screen. Just don't use my trademark in anything other than what appears as it is without your stuff on it, either in printed ink or electrons. But you don't need to do that, right? You don't need to stoop to that. In your hand, you can have the 5 things that go into explaining CT and MMP. What is that? Biomechanics and a point of view of Pilates. Don't care about either one of those. Then I'll keep my presentations to myself until I meet someone who might be interested. Especially if you've already attached. See, the thing to do is to attach the price and the time up front and payment up front. That's your complete offer. And then, of course, getting paid. How do I get paid? And if they can't get an email, then there's probably no way you're really going to get paid. Because the email sends to them an invitation to do it through PayPal, and you don't have to belong or anything to anything, but you do have to come up with a credit card or a bank account or something. Okay? To the extent that you build that bridge straight to your customers, your students, right? Then you have more control over income streams coming directly to you that you initiated in the first place under terms that were satisfactory to you in the first place. Be Aretha Franklin, at least as a presenter. I'm not saying as a student and joining a training program and all of that. You don't even have to teach Pilates to be a presenter. That's the cool thing about it. Read between the lines, see behind the curtain, add 2 and 2, evaluate points of view, direct your thinking, Geist.